I hope a lot of people from Pakistan will also hear this program of yours and see this program of yours.
I see some ignorant people troll you because of your religion. The ethos and the tradition of Indian Army gives equal respect to all the religions.
Anytime India has a problem with faith, anytime India has actually got a problem with any issue, it should turn to its army.
Yes.
You will find the best solutions are always there in the army.
Are fresh army units which are inducted in Jammu and Kashmir given any counter-terrorism training, or do they get on-the-job training?
Terrain is not the important thing. The physical terrain is not the important thing. The more important thing is the cultural terrain.
So can you explain the importance of Siachin glacier, and why does Pakistan lie about holding 1/3 of the glacier?
What is not known to the world and what is not known to the rest of India, what is not known to the Pakistani public, what is officially not known to the Pakistani media is that the Pakistan army is not in Siachin.
Oh, how important AFSPA is for our army to function.
Then the terrorists will first be laughing at you and probably die laughing rather than be killed by you. Right?
Can you share with my audience who Ikhwanis were and how effective were they in counter-terrorism?
Where sometimes I would be hesitant to send a soldier of the Indian army and Ikhwani would go and do the job.
So what's the way forward in Jammu and Kashmir, and if you were the NSA, how would you go ahead in the present scenario?
You can't have an anti-national, subversive media which is always working against India.
So what is psychological and information warfare?
What you and I are doing this now. We are countering information warfare.
After Article 370 was revoked, hardly any major international media houses have supported India.
Majority of the countries, even in the Islamic world, you found UAE honored Prime Minister Modi. Yes. Bahrain honored Prime Minister Modi.
So in your view, why are Turkey and Malaysia allying closely with Pakistan?
You must remember that within the Islamic Ummah, there are different countries who vie for the leadership of.
Hi, this is Ruchi Singh from Ruchi Singh Talks. I'm happy to invite you on the journey to greatness. The purpose is to connect, share and spread powerful, inspiring messages which takes us one step closer to the greatness within us. Please like, share and subscribe to Ruchi Singh Talks on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. It is my absolute honor to have one of the legends, heroes of the Indian Army, Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain. PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, SM, VSM and BAR.
Pakistan has not disappeared. Pakistan's terrorists have not disappeared. The launch pads, all 42 of those launch pads are still very much existent.
He is not only one of India's most decorated military officers.
It's a tool and an instrument for psychological warfare against India, against the Indian people and against the Indian army.
But he is also a role model for millions of patriots in India.
It is the army. So a lot of people say, sir, what is this? Is this your job? So of course it is my job. When no one else does anything, the Indian army will do that job.
Yeah. His knowledge of defense and strategy are next to none.
We have killed terrorists many times. We have killed hundreds of terrorists. We brought the strength of terrorists from 7,000-8,000 down to 300 today.
He is a member of two of the most prominent think tanks of New Delhi, besides being on the governing council of Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies.
And the army very clearly said one thing. They said, if there's a mutual withdrawal, we are aware that only one army will withdraw.
His expertise and vast experience on the complex issue of Jammu and Kashmir is a huge asset to our nation.
What the government of India has done is something which needed to be done in 1971.
He conceived and operationalized the Heart's Doctrine, which focused on people as the center of gravity in Kashmir.
With their assistance, since they knew all the terror tactics, since they knew most of the terror cadres, since they knew the hideouts,
he very successfully balanced the utilization of hard power in counter-infiltration and counter-terrorist operation and military soft power in dealing with the people of Kashmir. Yes.
You will be finding an informal reference to a personality in Pakistan called Ghafoora.
His hands-on experience of handling counterterrorism, combined with his vast knowledge of history, politics, and international relationships, make him a highly respected and sought-after speaker on international stages.
There is another form of warfare, and that is hybrid warfare.
And I have one thing in common with General Hasnain. We are both army brats.
Both of us being army brats, obviously will always see that.
Yes. So I noticed that his followers on social media, especially Twitter, keep asking him questions related to Indian Army, counter-terrorism, international events, which has an impact on India. So I reached out to General Hasnain and requested him to come to my show and answer the questions which his countless followers have for him. And he was kind enough to agree to do this interview. Guess how many questions I got? 193 before I stopped taking questions. So I shortlisted close to 80 questions and let General Hasnain decide the final ones. Before starting this interview, can I request all of you listening to this interview to leave a message for Sir and our Indian Army in the comment section of the video. Sir, thank you so much for taking out time to do this. This is why you're so loud.
It's a pleasure to be on this show and on this very innovative idea. I'm acutely aware of the fact that a lot of people on Twitter, other elements of social media, send in a lot of questions and they expect responses to that. But it's humanly not possible for me to actually respond to every question. And therefore, this whole concept and idea which you have captured is a brilliant one, that those which can't be answered in writing immediately in 280 letters can perhaps be answered better through a video format. And that is why this whole idea was born. So hopefully we will do many more of these, and it's my pleasure doing it. And this is actually for all my followers on Twitter that we are actually doing this.
So I want to start with this question. I see some ignorant people troll you because of your religion. Please can you explain to the people that patriotism has nothing to do with religion? The ethos and the tradition of Indian Army gives equal respect to all the religions. And also, how do the Indian Armed Forces train its officers and men to be so secular?
It's a very good question. But let me tell you, most of the trolling which takes place on the aspect of religion actually takes place from across the border, from Pakistan, where traditionally most people there have never had the chance to sit or eat a meal or be educated alongside people from different religions and different faiths. That's a major advantage we have in India, and that's a blessing for us that we should always count. But having said that, yes, when I get trolled, there is some trolling sometimes, even from our side, where people give me a lot of lectures about religion and things like that. What most people do not understand is that in the armed forces, the moment you have stepped in, you have left your faith behind. Your faith is your private, is in your privacy. You can do it in your room, in your house, in your family, anything. But your faith, the faith which you will follow, is the faith which your troops follow. That is the unwritten law of the armed forces. No one tells you this. It just gets imbibed as soon as you enter your unit. Because we have a very simple system. In every unit, first of all, if there are 120 men from a particular faith, then you will always have a religious teacher along with them. For example, if there are 120 Sikhs in a unit, then you will have a Granthi who will be authorized along with them. And he will be in charge of their religious instruction. The officer can be from anywhere. The officer can be a Hindu or a Christian or a Muslim. He will join the troops for all aspects which are related to the faith. For example, if a Muslim belongs to a Sikh unit, then the faith of that Muslim is virtually Sikhism. His Islamic faith is the faith which he will practice at home in the privacy of his room, but the faith which he will practice in public is that of his troops. So this makes it a very, very unique kind of a arrangement. And let me tell you, I don't think it takes too much to actually bring any training into this. It's something which is imbibed in our troops, in our officers, and right from the academy days, anyone talking of faith in a awkward manner is frowned upon.
Yeah.
That is the thing which ensures that it is a kind of an instruction, you can see, because that is what forces an officer to do inward, looking at himself inwards, feeling for the faith of his troops. That is the essential part of it. Otherwise, the Indian Army is entirely pluralistic, secular, whatever you want to call it. And the last point I want to re-emphasize, the faith of the officer is the faith which his troops follow.
So thank you so much for sharing this unique aspect of the Indian Army with the rest of the world. Being from the army background, I have experienced it firsthand, so it really troubles me when I read certain comments, certain ignorant comments which come your way just because of your religion. It is just not right.
Should I add something more to this? I think it will reinforce it.
Yes, please.
Anecdotally, let me tell you that 3 years ago, Nawazuddin Siddiqui, the famous actor, was trolled on Twitter when he put a remark saying that he had gone back to his hometown in Muzaffarnagar and wanted to play the role of Ram in the Ram Leela. He claimed that for many years of his life as a child, he always played the role of Ram. But in 2016, he was denied that role because people told him, "You're a Muslim. How can you play the role of Ram?" So he put it on in a Twitter and said, "I was hurt because this is something which means that India is changing. My hometown is changing." When I read that tweet, I tweeted. I tweeted one of my articles which I had just written at that time, and which the Times of India just took less than 12 hours to publish. The title of the article was "The Faith of the Officer is the Faith of His Soldiers." This is exactly what I just told you. And Times of India loved it. And when I put it out on Twitter, I put it out with this, that anytime India has a problem with faith, anytime India has actually got a problem with any issue, it should turn to its army.
Yes.
You will find the best solutions are always there in the army.
Wow. I'm going to read that article. India is such a brilliant cohesion of different cultures, religion, languages. And I personally feel that our Indian Army is the best example of this. What is best of India is in the Indian Army.
Both of us being army brats, obviously will always do that.
Yes. So one of the questions I received is, are fresh army units which are inducted in Jammu and Kashmir given any counter-terrorism training, or do they get on-the-job training?
You see, the role of the Indian Army, the primary role of the Indian Army is all conventional warfare, which means it's essentially warfare across the border, right? And armed to the teeth with the artillery, guns, the tanks, and whatever you have. But what most people do not realize is that there is another form of warfare, and that is hybrid warfare. It's a combination of different types of elements of warfare. And in that, terrorism is one of the major domains. So the army has always got to be trained for counter-terrorism as a part of its secondary responsibility. This is not the primary responsibility. This is the secondary responsibility, where it is carrying out internal security and is carrying out counter-terrorism. Let me briefly explain to your audience what the difference basically between internal security and counter-terrorism is. Although they're almost the same thing, but internal security is essentially a term we use when we are assisting the local authorities, local security authorities like the police, the civil administration. If there is, for example, a major agitation in Pune and they call out the army for assistance, then the army will be coming out to do internal security duties or aid to civil authorities. Right? Counter-terrorism is much more than that. Counter-terrorism is a situation as in Kashmir, where, or as it was in Punjab, or as it is in the northeastern some states, where the army can undertake its operations without reference to a civil authority. So you are empowered to do that. And that is how you have to train yourself to do these duties independently, respond to situations in which terrorists are present and there are terrorist threats. So when an army unit comes into Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, anywhere, first of all, before it moves from its peace location, it is given a period of time, normally 8 weeks, to align itself with the duties that it will be carrying out in Jammu and Kashmir. Normally, these 8 weeks are not sufficient because the units are normally in an administrative mode at that time. Once they reach Kashmir, anywhere in Jammu or in Kashmir, there is a special package in which the whole unit goes to what is called the core battle school, and there it is trained. Trained as a full unit, and some elements of it are trained initially when the advance party comes. Every unit before it moves sends out an advance party. So when the advance party comes, the advance party is also trained very intensely, and that advance party then trains the main unit. So you have a system of training the trainer, and the trainer then trains the rest of the unit, right? So it is a formalized system of it, there's no doubt. But I would say the best training is on the job.
Yeah.
As soon as they join duty, as soon as they go and relieve the outgoing unit, I think it doesn't take them more than maybe a month, maximum of 6 to 8 weeks, by which they are completely into it. The only aspect which may be slightly missing is the aspect of intelligence, because you have to familiarize yourself with your terrain, with the people, with the language, with the culture. All this takes a lot of time. And in counter-terrorism, my famous adage, which I always say, is that terrain is not the important thing. The physical terrain is not the important thing. The more important thing is the cultural terrain, where you understand every aspect of the area you're working in, you're serving in, every aspect of the people there, their language and their culture, their sensitivities, their gender-related activities, everything you must understand if you want to be successful in counter-terror operations.
So you mentioned cultural terrorism, and I'm aware that our army in the recent years has done some very innovative things, especially like appealing to the mothers whose children have taken to stone pelting. I think it was a brilliant move by the army. So how does the Indian Army come up with such strategies?
This is actually a very, very important question, because as I said, there's a thing called the cultural terrain, and the army makes very deep efforts to understand the sensitivities of the people there, understand their strengths and their weaknesses. For the last 20, 23 years almost now, the army is involved in a thing called Sadbhavna, which is reaching out to the people and doing something for them administratively. We have chosen 4 domains primarily. The first domain is education, and we are running 43 goodwill schools in Jammu and Kashmir, which are subscribed to completely, and almost everyone actually wires for an admission into the schools. The second is medical, and we have opened a couple of public health centers, or rather given assistance to public health centers, and very importantly, we conduct a lot of medical camps to provide support, and veterinary camps, veterinary camps to the people, so that free of cost they get their medicines, their medical attention. The third aspect is women empowerment, where I'm very proud to say it, and people wonder what is this to do with the army. I'm very proud to say that the army was the only organization in Jammu and Kashmir which recognized that the girl child had no toilet facilities in any of the schools.
Okay.
Where do the young girls go as far as the toilet requirements are concerned? And this is a typical thing of a male-dominated society where no one is sensitive to this at all. It is the army So a lot of people say, sir, what is this? Is this your job? So of course it is my job. When no one else does anything, the Indian Army will do that job.
Yes.
And we gave the contracts to construct many hundreds of toilets for girl children. Right? And the fourth thing is national integration, where we send a lot of these school tours and excursions. Also, women-only tours. We send adult tours, or should I say, veteran tours to different places. Go and see the rest of India to see what the benefits of peace can be and how the benefits of peace can travel to you in Jammu and Kashmir. So, and there are now many more domains like sports and things like that. So, Sadbhavana is essentially it's also called Operation Sadbhavana sometimes. It is a means by which we reach out to the people, try and win their hearts and minds at a tactical and an operational level, so that the army finds it easier to function in the same place where they are serving with the local people. Now, in the process of this, we realize that women in society are very important entities. Why I say this is because a woman is a mother. Though a woman is the daughter, she's a sister, she's a sister-in-law, she's a daughter-in-law. And her influence in a family is very profound. A father may do something very wrong, a brother may do something very wrong, come back home, can be mellowed a lot by the influence of the sister or the daughter or the wife. Now, taking advantage of these relationships, it's very important that you empower and encourage the woman to say that don't let your family get destroyed. Allow your family to proliferate, advance, progress in life, instead of taking to the gun, instead of taking to the stones in stone throwing in the streets. Your child will get arrested today. If he gets arrested and there's a police case against him, he can never join government service and all his life after that. Right? Most of these things are not known to people at all. So when you find that a young boy, 15, 16 years old, is suddenly missing, and after 3 or 4, 5 days, you do realize that the police gives you a report, locals tell you that he's probably gone into the bush and become a terrorist. Or if there are some very prolific stone throwers who are known to the police and known to us, the best thing is for putting any other pressure. Go to the family, appeal to the mother, speak to the mother, speak to the sister, and through them make very deliberate but very soft calls to that individual. And this has to be, it can't be a hard 1 hour, 2 hour call on the first day. It has to be done very progressively, explaining to him and telling him, and the mother can do it, the sister can do it. It's becomes an appeal, and alongside that, the army puts its bit into it to say that your mother's appeal to you, we are the ones who will support it completely. You come on board and we will make sure that nothing happens to you. You will go back to your normal life, etc., etc. Surprisingly, these things have worked. And we've had a couple of instances where children have actually come back from the bush with their weapons, surrendered. Maybe a little bit of investigation has been done against them. They have not gone to prison even. They may have gone to a detention facility for a few days, but nothing more than that. So these are great examples. And I think this is one of the best ways of actually countering terrorism than just the use of the AK-47 or the use of the baton against the stone.
Thank you so much, sir, for explaining it in such detail. It helps the general public to know that our army is doing so much at such different levels to tackle such a complicated issue of terrorism and to bring peace. So my father, when he was posted to RR, had told us about a group which the Indian Army used to fight the militants in the valley. And I found those stories so fascinating. So please, can you share with my audience who Ikhwanis were and how effective were they in counter-terrorism?
Okay, let me start with a bang actually. Ikhwanis, Recently, I was in Nagpur just a fortnight ago. I was invited to a NGO called Prahar, which honors the widows of Ashok Chakra and Paramveer Chakra winners of the year. I was invited to be the chief guest there. And this year, coincidentally, the Ashok Chakra winner was late Naik Nazir Ahmed Wani, who was incidentally an Ikhwani. And his wife was there to receive all the accolades. We honored her and we honored his memory. He was from a unit called 162 Infantry Battalion, Territorial Army, Home and Earth. What is this whole thing? The Home and Earth TA battalions are those which have been set up to give, first of all, more employment to the local Kashmiris. And going beyond the Territorial Army system, these are embodied 24/7, 365 days of the year. They live in the valley itself. They serve in the Kashmir Valley or in Jammu region. That's why it's called Home and Earth. So 162 Infantry Battalion is the battalion in which all the Ikhwanis were absorbed. Now going backwards, what were the Ikhwanis? When the whole thing started in 1989, a number of local Kashmiris, both in North and South Kashmir, took up arms. And there was a perception based on some very, very adroit information warfare carried out by Pakistan, that as if the creation of the independent state or the Pakistani state of Jammu and Kashmir is going to happen overnight. The slogan called Kashmir Banega Pakistan started going around everywhere. And a lot of people started crossing the line of control for training, etc. Lots of people went across. Some of them went and fought in Afghanistan. Before 1989, some of them went and fought in Afghanistan. Some were trained in Afghanistan. And they came back and the ISI sent them in across the line of control. We had very little strength on the line of control at that time. We couldn't even really prevent this infiltration and exfiltration. And the local elements came and started fighting the Jammu and Kashmir police, the local VSF and the army in the streets, in the various towns and villages. Suddenly after 1991, as it happens in every terror campaign, any insurgency, militancy which turns terrorist in nature, there are some elements who after a short while have a change of heart. Sure enough, here also there was a change of heart among many of them, who felt that they were not doing the right thing by fighting against their own homeland. They were fighting against their own army, that they actually belong to India and they had nothing to take from Pakistan. Similar situations have been experienced in Malaya earlier, in the earlier incidences in Northern Ireland, in Sri Lanka. The people who come back to support the army, they are called counter groups. They are the ones who come back to assist the army, right? So we appealed, we made an access to them, and many of them came on board, came together and functioned in an organization called the Ikhwan. Now in North Kashmir, this group, this whole thing was led by a man, a very famous man called Kuka Pare. And Kuka Pare. It belonged to a place called Hajan in North Kashmir. And in South Kashmir, it was primarily centered at Anantnag and Kulgam under the leadership of someone who I know very well today. He was given the title, local title called Hilale Haider, and his name was Liaquat Ali. Yeah. He's still there very much in Anantnag. So they are the ones who became the leaders, and with their assistance, since they knew all the terror tactics, since they knew most of the terror cadres, since they knew the hideouts, they are the ones who came to our assistance to help us conduct these operations. And with their assistance, we did some very interesting, very, very important counter-terrorist operations all over South Kashmir and North Kashmir. Unfortunately, what always happens, the experience we've always had is the control over these counter groups, and they're called counter groups. That's the exact terminology, which I was forgetting. They're called counter groups. So the control over the counter groups usually starts diluting. Their discipline starts becoming awkward. They don't listen to the army completely. And since they are housed together, they're given weapons by the army, they're given ammunition by the army. Somehow they become a power unto themselves, and they lose touch with the local people. And the local people go against them. That's exactly what happened to the Ikhwans here, where the local people lost faith in them. They felt that they had let down their own people. They felt they had gone to the army and assisted the army and assisted the rest of India, etc. So this is a very awkward situation as it is in Jammu and Kashmir. So these people lost that confidence, and over a period of time, their importance started diluting. It's only later that because of the great work that some of them had done, and I've experienced some of these operations with them, I can vouch for the fact that where sometimes I would be hesitant to send a soldier of the Indian Army, and Ikhwani would go and do the job. Wow. That's an amazing thing to say, right? But in around 2003, it was felt that we needed to formalize their employment. So that is why this TA battalion was raised as a part of many other TA battalions, and they were formally inducted into it. They were given military training, and from terrorists to counter groups, they became regular TA soldiers of the Indian Army.
So ever since my father told us about the Ikhwanis, I have been so fascinated by this band of extremely brave men, and to learn more about them directly from you, who's an expert on Jammu and Kashmir and counter-terrorism, is such an honor. And this is another brilliant example of our army's innovation to solve the issue of terrorism.
No doubt, no doubt. We have found lots and lots of ways, refined our methodologies over a period of time. We have to realize that we are at this job now almost for 30 years in Jammu and Kashmir.
Sir, AFSPA is an extremely important and critical legal cover which enables the Indian armed forces to fight the terrorist. Now, due to certain mischievous propaganda, pressure is put on the government to withdraw this act from Jammu and Kashmir. So I request you to explain to our citizens how important AFSPA is for our army to function.
See, as I explained to you, I think right in the beginning, the first question. An army, when it is called to do assistance to local civil authorities in an internal security kind of a situation, in Pune, for example, it will come out, do a flag march, and it will always have a magistrate with it. And the magistrate, if there is a gathering of unlawful elements anywhere, if there is some kind of a lawlessness going on, the local magistrate will direct the army and say that, please, this is the thing, this is the problem, please resolve it. The army will even take permission from him to fire. And the army will fire one round as a warning initially. Not even a warning, they will fire for effect, but it will start with one round, maybe a second round, to disperse an unlawful assembly. Now that is all aid to civil authorities. If you are called in Jammu and Kashmir to fight terrorism, can you fight it in this way? Because if there's a terrorist somewhere and we say, let me wait for a magistrate to come and join my column and then I will respond, and then I will take permission from the magistrate to fire at the terrorist, then the terrorist will first be laughing at you and probably die laughing rather than be killed by you, right? So there's a methodology. There's a methodology by which the army is empowered by a special legislation. AFSPA, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act of 1990, Jammu and Kashmir, empowers the army. It is, let me describe it that it has got 7 sections. And it was an act which was, if I may say so, enacted in a little bit of a hurry, because in 1990 the situation was very bad. The army had just come in. Important thing to remember is that because of Article 370, the full laws of India were not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir. So you had, for example, the CRPC under the Criminal Procedure Code, an Indian Army soldier, personnel, if he committed a mistake, if he killed someone inadvertently in the course of his duties, anywhere in India, he will be protected. He will not be prosecuted immediately unless the central government gives permission for it. In Jammu and Kashmir, this was not applicable, which meant that if a person made a mistake in the course of his duties, he killed a civilian by mistake, he could be prosecuted locally by the local police. That is something which we can't allow. Now, how would our soldiers function on ground? So there's a certain amount of protection had to be given to our soldiers. So a special law had to be made. Number two, we had to empower our men that in the course of their duties, if they require to immediately operate independently without the civil magistrate with them, then they can do so anywhere they go and carry out their functions. So AFSPA empowers them to do this. So AFSPA has got two essential elements: the element of empowerment and the element of protection. Two things. Protection means that if something goes wrong, then it is only the central government in Delhi which will give permission to prosecute the soldier or the officer or anyone. Now, a lot of people think that AFSPA is being misused by the army to conduct operations the manner in which it wants to, which means that it goes to an area and if it finds a lot of people, it will just kill them with a spray of AK-47, as if officers of the Indian Army have gone mad, or the soldiers have gone crazy. All the people don't realize that the army considers everyone in Jammu and Kashmir as part of India. They are all our own countrymen. So a tremendous amount of nefarious propaganda, information warfare, which has been spread by our adversaries, by the separatists, to say that AFSPA is what allows the army to function without any discipline, arrest people here and there, get into homes, rape women, all kinds of things. It's meant for the purpose of telling people who have no idea what AFSPA is all about, right? And we have not been able to counter this propaganda effectively. The purpose behind this propaganda is that if AFSPA is not there, then the army cannot function. The army cannot be there. So it will be only the police. And is this situation, is it possible for only the police to handle it? That is the whole question which should come. Why is the army there? Why are 63 battalions of the Rashtra Rifles there? Because they are the most important and most effective tools of the government of India, besides the rest of the army which is deployed. So this pressure is all the time on the government to force the resignment of AFSPA. Politically, the government in Jammu and Kashmir, of different political parties, they have always undertaken this mission, the stand that AFSPA must go. Because locally to the people, if AFSPA goes, then psychologically it means it's a great victory for the people. And it's a great political victory for the political parties. So those political parties are not anti-India in any way. I don't call them anti-India. But for their own political purposes, they want that the army, that AFSPA must go and the army should not be allowed to function. So that cannot happen because it is counterproductive. We have reached so far in the last 30 years. We cannot allow this situation to come back in the same way as it was in the 90s. Pakistan has not disappeared. Pakistan's terrorists have not disappeared. The launch pads, all 42 of those launch pads are still very much existent in Pakistan. I asked this question from the then Chief Minister also in Kashmir when they were asking for my recommendation to remove AFSPA. I said, I will definitely recommend the removal of AFSPA. If Pakistan has disappeared, if the terrorists have all vaporized, and if all the launch pads have been dismantled, and now there are no terrorists in Kashmir, then definitely you must remove AFSPA. But if you can certify to me that all this has been done, then let's do it. No one can obviously certify it. So this is the problem with Armed Forces Special Powers. It's a tool and an instrument for psychological warfare against India, against the Indian people, and against the Indian army. We must not allow that to happen. There's another element to it where they say remove AFSPA from the two districts of Srinagar and Badgaam. That's what they wanted in 2011 to do. And I told them that it cannot be done because you can't do it selectively. If you do it selectively, then all the terrorists from the other areas are going to gravitate into that area where there's no AFSPA. And they will carry out their activities because the army is not going to be functioning. Mercifully, the government of India, central government of India here, did not agree to it. If it had agreed to it, the problem of 2016, which we encountered with Burhan Wani's killing, would probably have been 10 times worse. Thankfully, AFSPA remains today completely in place there.
So thank you so much for sharing about this very important act. I'm not an expert on these things, but being an army brat, I keep listening to these discussions which take place very naturally in our living room. And I was hoping you will talk about this because our public needs to know the importance of these acts for the army. And like you rightly said, Indian Army has not been given the chance to counter this kind of propaganda.
This is a very important aspect for the public in India to know, because there are all kinds of armchair warriors in India who love to talk about these things without having read the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. I have researched this very deeply, and I have since this whole issue came to me in 2011, I had to work on it a lot with my own legal experts. So I like to bring the experience of that knowledge back to the nation and back to the people, so that they are far better educated and handling this kind of a thing when it comes to propaganda.
Thank you, sir. India is all for our army, at least most of us are. And with this kind of information coming directly from such a highly respected army general, will enable our citizens to counter propaganda against our army. So what is psychological and information warfare, and how can a common man counter the psychological warfare of India's enemies?
In the beginning, we spoke about hybrid war. And hybrid war is a combination of different domains of warfare. Warfare is not a single entity. It's got lots of domains. It's got a conventional domain. In the conventional domain, outside the conventional domain, you have even higher level is nuclear warfare, which is not really an element of war fighting, but it's a deterrence. It's an element of deterrence. You have low intensity warfare. You have border conflicts, and then you have insurgency, militancy, and terror. Right. Besides that, you also have financial warfare. You have trade warfare. It's also a part of the whole thing. You have energy warfare. All kinds of, these are all elements of hybrid war. In Kashmir, one of the very important aspects of fighting this war has been the creation of what I have always called the ecosystem. The ecosystem which supports this whole war. Terrorists are underground people. You don't see them, they hide and they fight with you. Along with them, you have what are called overground workers. They're not terrorists. They don't have arms, but they're armed with their tongue. They're very informative. They know the whole area. They know all the history of that place. They will come and speak with you. They will come and speak to me. They will claim to be very pro-Indian, but actually they're completely anti-Indian. And they will assist the terrorists from above ground, right? They can be lawyers. They can be government servants. They can be principals of colleges and schools, teachers. They can be students. There can be a lot of people in the media. These are all overground workers. Okay. Now this kind of a war, therefore, is supported both underground and above ground in this manner. Then along with it is financial circuits. You need a lot of money to fight, to carry out terror. Right? For example, I can tell you this with authority that a guide at the line of control who does 5 or 6 crossings with the infiltrators would earn between 4 to 6 lakh rupees in a year. As much as that much, yeah. Right, so money is a very important thing here. Terrorists also have a system by which terrorists who have died, their families are actually given pension by the terrorists. So there's a whole financial system which is functioning here. Right? Now, we have killed terrorists many times. We have killed hundreds of terrorists. We brought the strength of terrorists from 7,000 to 8,000 down to 300 today. What we have now been able to kill so far is terrorism. Yeah. We have killed the terrorists, but we have not killed terrorism. Terrorism is the system. The terrorist is only one entity in that, right? So in this ecosystem, information and propaganda are two very important elements. To sustain this kind of war continuously, to motivate the terrorist cadres, to motivate the overground workers, OGWs, to demotivate the army, to motivate the youth, to demotivate the police. For example, the Jammu and Kashmir police has got a lot of local people who are recruited and who are fighting against the terrorists. Information warfare will be used again to target them, to tell them, see, you're fighting your own people. You're fighting against your own neighbors, right? You should join our ranks. You should not be a part of be part of the police. You should not be working for the government of India. You should not be working for the Indian army. These are all elements of information warfare, right? The army has to use counter-information warfare or information warfare of our own, which essentially means telling the people that supporting terror is not to your advantage. Supporting separatism is not to your advantage. After all, which country are you joining? Look at Pakistan. Look at the state of Pakistan. Look at India, where there's so much of tolerance, there's so much of plurality in the faiths. We have a better growth. Economic dividend in India is much higher. All that. So essentially, it is a lot of information being brought. For example, this whole issue of AFSPA that we discussed just now. I would say what I spoke is actually information warfare. I'm now informing my own people. I'm countering the propaganda which is done by the other side, right? While all that they are speaking against AFSPA is their information warfare. So this is a thing which goes on 24/7 through the media, these days through social media, etc. Now there are informal ways of countering it. There are formal ways of countering it. The informal way of countering it is exactly what you and I are doing this now. We are countering information warfare. We are countering a lot of propaganda. And at the same time, we are reinforcing the beliefs of our own people, which is essentially, again, a part of information warfare, right? And we are also, along with countering this, I hope a lot of people from Pakistan will also hear this program of yours and see this program of yours, and probably also be affected to some extent, influenced to some extent, although it's very difficult to influence people in one hearing and in one program in this manner, right? So this is what information warfare and propaganda is all about. The formal part of this is very important. Pakistan has got what is called the ISPR. Now I must tell your viewers, everyone knows what the ISI is. I'm sure you know what the ISI is. It's called the Inter-Services Intelligence. Pakistan's very important intelligence agency, very experienced intelligence agency. But very few people in India have any idea of what is called the ISPR. It is the Inter-Services Public Relations Agency of Pakistan. You must be seeing on, if you're on Twitter, you will be finding an informal reference to a personality in Pakistan called Ghafoora. Many times on the Twitter you will find Ghafoora. Ghafoora is no one else than Major General Asif Ghafoor, who is the Director General of the ISPR in Pakistan. Right? From India, in an informal way, most of our Twitterati likes to call him Ghafoora. Right? In fact, I went to the extent of actually even praising the ISPR in a talk in London once, where I actually praised them and I said, see, professionally, the job which they are doing for their country is an amazing job. They have done a tremendous job for their country. And we have not been able to counter it sufficiently because we do not have an equivalent of the ISPR in India. It's about time. Now we are in the process of formalizing our response in the information domain to a greater extent. And I hope in the near future, you will find that India's information warfare handling will be far more professional than what it has been all these years. Yeah.
Such knowledge shared from experts like you goes a very long way in educating the rest of us about the realities of a given situation. And I'm sure that now with the government's backing, we'll do a far better job.
Yes, absolutely.
So, what's the way forward in Jammu and Kashmir? And if you were the NSA, how would you go ahead in the present scenario?
See, that is one chair I would never like to occupy, because that's a 24/7 job, 24/7, 365 days a year job. And I'm sure Mr. Doval, the stamina which he is displaying is something amazing. But let's hypothetically say, yes, if you're sitting in a position of power and you're advising or you're executing, what would you do beyond just removing Article 370 and 35A? And I would say now we are 2 months down, after the 5th of August, we are 2 months down. A lot of people are victorious. They're in a sense of triumphalism to say that Kashmir problem has been resolved. To them, I say, forget it. The Kashmir problem has been rekindled. You are going to see many more problems in Kashmir. Okay, that's number one. All those who are very triumphant in their approach that everything is going to be resolved. At the same time, to those who think that everything is going to become very bad and that these 2 months of so-called lockdown, the whole world has turned against us, the international media is writing against us, I'll tell them, for them also I'll have a message that so what? What the government of India has done, to my mind, is something which needed to be done in 1971 after the war. We should have removed Article 370 and 35A at that time. We didn't do it. For various reasons, we didn't have the strategic ability to foresee how things would unfold in Jammu and Kashmir. So I don't blame anything. But in 1994, we once again had all parties coming together, both houses of parliament coming together to pass a resolution to say that the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir, which was under the control of the Maharaja of Kashmir, belongs to India, and we will aspire to get it back. That was one more time when we could have actually gone ahead and abrogated 370 and 35. We didn't do it again. So 25 years after that, we've done it now on the 5th of August, 2019. Very, very brave decision, very, very difficult decision. A lot of perhaps homework went into it. But now, what next? That is the important issue we should be asking us. I would say there are 3-4 things here. The situation in Jammu and Kashmir is made up by, number one, separatist propaganda, the presence of the separatist leadership, the infiltration which goes on from across the line of control and the support that Pakistan gives it, the wherewithal which comes in, that is ammunition, explosives, etc. from time to time, which helps the terrorists to function. The recruitment which carries on in North and South Kashmir, everywhere. And very, very importantly, the finances which come in from time to time through even official circuits like Western Union money transfers and through even banking transactions. And lastly, the radical ideology which seems to give a spurt to Kashmiri nationalism from time to time. These are the entities which form up the entire situation, the negative situation which has existed in Kashmir. What the army has done always, it has targeted the terrorists, it has targeted the wherewithal. The rest of it is the responsibility of the government of India, which somehow over a period of time no one has done anything about it. The army cannot get rid of radicalism. The army cannot get rid of the finances. The army cannot get rid of the separatist leadership. Now, therefore, what you should be looking at is targeting all those things which have never been targeted before. So targeting the separatists, and the government of India has already done it to a great extent. Detained them, made them irrelevant, right? Cut off their communications completely. In earlier years, 2008, I remember 8, 9, 10, they were in detention, they were in house arrest, but from there they were in communication with all their followers. This time, when people are crying about mobile networks being brought down, I say very good.
Yes.
Because this is the experience we had of 2008, 9, 10, 2016. And therefore, unless you are responsible enough to ensure that your mobile technology and your mobile networks are used for the purpose that they are required to, I would not like these mobile networks to be used against the country, against the nation, right? So the day we feel that People will be more responsible, will use this more responsibility. Mobile networks must be open, and they will be open in due course. So that's about separatist leadership. Financials. Financial networks are so deep all over the country. Money comes into Kashmir by different means. I think the National Investigation Agency has done a wonderful job. The NIA, intelligence agencies overall have done an outstanding job. It is already under pressure. It will take some more time before the financial circuits are all taken apart or dismantled. The next thing is the aspect of radical ideology. Now, this is the most difficult thing. Most difficult thing, but we really don't have any major ideas of how to do it. It is being done to some extent. The use of social media, the use of information, influence operations, seeing various models from other different countries, like Singapore has a great model on how they've done it. We have looked at all this, and I'm sure the government of India is adopting these models for the future. One of the ways I would strongly recommend is that they need to induct into Jammu and Kashmir large segments of the Muslim clergy from the rest of India who are certified pro-national, nationalist, completely Indian and patriotic. And these are the people who must go there and help in the de-radicalization efforts. And the last thing, most important thing, once the mobile networks have been opened up, communications have been opened up, elections probably are in the process of being undertaken, etc., we need to undertake a huge outreach program of winning hearts and minds of the people once again. Now, what does this mean? Sadbhavana done by the army has been done for its own purpose, for its purpose of the tactical and operational requirement of the places where the army functions, to ensure that you have a kind of a very calm environment there, and the outreach to the people and confidence with the people is very, very mutual. This needs to go to the highest level. It needs to go to the national strategic level. It needs to go to the state government and the national government level. They have to undertake these programs. Why? Because in hybrid conflict, the solution does not lie in killing the military entity, that is the terrorist. The solution lies ultimately in all the departments of the government coming together in their different domains and fighting against the various aspects of hybrid war. For example, the NIA fighting financial circuits, right? And the social welfare departments of the government of India and the government of Jammu and Kashmir fighting the radicalization which is taking place in society. So all this will have to be undertaken together as a doctrine, as a strategy. And the guidelines for this must be laid out. This should be simplified. I would say a 10-point formula or something like that should be enacted or should be drafted out and should be handed over to people to look at, examine. The media in Kashmir. The media in Kashmir must be brought on board. I'm not saying that the media should be controlled. I'm just saying brought on board. You can't have an anti-national, subversive media, which is always working against India.
Yes.
You need to have a media which is okay, which is being fair, where there is an administrative problem in Jammu and Kashmir, if there are constraints among the people are feeling, by all means the media must point out all this. But to be anti-national in its stance and looking at Pakistan all the time, that kind of thing should be completely frowned upon. So that's my overall approach to Jammu and Kashmir for the next 1, 2, 3 years, perhaps. Yeah.
Sir, since we are discussing information warfare, there is a certain section of the media in India who never find anything positive to say about either India or our army.
Correct.
So why is it that after Article 370 was revoked, while most of the countries of the world have supported India, but hardly any major international media houses have done so? So why is that?
Majority of the countries, even in the Islamic world, you found UAE honored Prime Minister Modi.
Yes.
Bahrain honored Prime Minister Modi at this time after the 5th of August. But international media, if you look at the New York Times and the Washington Post and the London Times, even some of the newspapers in Japan, In Australia, hardly any media house has supported it. Obviously, there's something wrong with our handling of media, right? Obviously, there's something, and that's where the information domain comes. That we have traditionally been weak in the handling of the information domain. What we need to do is be much more proactive in dealing with. Today is not just the media in different countries, it is also the think tanks. New York is full of think tanks. Washington is full of think tanks, right? Many of the people who write for the media are members of these think tanks. You need to have your people in these think tanks, your retired diplomats, retired generals, your strategic analysts, your university professors and people like that. They need to be there. And we need to make a conscious effort to induct them there, right? Pakistan has done that very well.
Yes.
Pakistan has done it very, very well. And anywhere you go around the world, you'll find that any seminar I go to in the world, I always find a Pakistani sitting there in front of me. Rarely do I find too many Indians there. So this is something we need a rethink about.
So can you explain the importance of Siachin glacier and why does Pakistan lie about holding 1/3 of the glacier? Please let people know what the truth is.
You see, what about the problem of Siachin? Number one, Siachin is a glaciated area, as you're aware. Tremendous amount of ice. What is a glacier? A glacier is a frozen river, sometimes 200, 300 feet deep ice inside it. Right? When it melts in the summer, tremendous amount of outflow of water. The Siachin glacier feeds the Indus River. The Indus River is the main water source of Pakistan. Right? We've got the Indus Waters Treaty with Pakistan, where 3 of the northern rivers, the waters are, they have the rights, primary rights, as the lower riparian state, and we've got the second rights, but the other rivers which are in Punjab, we've got the major rights over those rivers. Siachin Glacier is one of the major sources of water for the Indus, and therefore a major source of water for Pakistan. Right. Somehow this thing was not realized to that extent after 1971. In 1972, after the Shimla Agreement, we had a demarcation of the line of control. Both sides were doing it, and they did it up to a point called 9842. NJ 9842. Right. As on the map, you have a reference point, NJ 9842, which you can now see on the map. So beyond that is the Siachin Glacier area. So when people saw it, they said this is an area which is icebound, snowbound, no one will survive here. There is no habitation, no population, nothing grows here. So there's no point going and demarcating the line. So they wrote 4 words in their agreement. They said the line of control after 9842 will travel north to the glaciers. North to the glaciers. There are 4 words they used. These 4 words have come back to virtually strangulate India a couple of years later. In 1978, we realized that Pakistan was sending expeditions and patrols, international expeditions into the high peaks which are surrounding the Siachin Glacier. When we objected, they said the meaning of north to the glaciers means the line joining NJ 9842 to the Karakoram Pass. It is actually moving northeastwards, which meant the whole Siachin Glacier belongs to Pakistan. So India put a counterclaim. And we said, no, our meaning of north to the glaciers is NJ 9842 along the watershed. Now, what is the watershed? Watershed is an imaginary line joining the mountain tops of a range. When there's rainfall, then equal amount of water flows on both sides of that line. That's called the watershed. The watershed in this area is along what is called the Sartoro range. The mountain tops of that range, it goes up to 22,000, 23,000 feet, very, very high. So from 78 till 1984, both sides continued to contest this. They said this is the one, we said this is the one, and there's this triangular wedge of territory, which became the bone of contention. In 1984, we realized the strategic importance of Siachin for India, very, very important, that we cannot hold on to the Karakoram Pass, even if we cannot hold on to the Karakoram range if Pakistan occupies the whole of Siachin Glacier. So it's important that we must get there first. So I think it was in April 1984. We flew by helicopter, we flew a unit, 4th Battalion of the Kumaon Regiment, same unit which fought in 1947 at Srinagar, Badgam. First Paramveer Chakra of the Indian Army was won by this battalion. Major Somnath Sharma, 4th of November 1947. That's the same battalion which was flown into Siachin in April 1984, and they occupied the main glacier. And then they fanned out over a period of time to the mountain passes. There are a lot of passes here, Bilafondla, Siala, and things like that. They moved up on top. From 1984 onwards, the Pakistan Army till 2003 made effort after effort to try and evict the Indian Army from the Saltoro Ridge. But they could not evict us, right? Pervez Musharraf, when he was, before he became president, much before he became president, was commander of the SSG. In 1987, he personally led efforts to try and evict us from the Saltoro Ridge. But they failed in doing that. So, the important thing now is, the Saltoro Ridge is with us, Siachin Glacier is with us, right? That means the control of the water source is with us, not with Pakistan, right? What is not known to the world and what is not known to the rest of India, what is not known to the Pakistani public, what is officially not known to the Pakistani media is that the Pakistan Army is not in Siachin.
Oh.
Pakistan Army has sold this narrative to the nation, to Pakistan, to the Pakistani media, that they are in Siachin. They have never admitted that they lost the Siachin to the Indian Army because of our proactivity. So they have gone and made, now this is where propaganda comes. This is where information warfare comes. They've gone and made films on Discovery Channel. Pakistan Army in Siachin Glacier. Where are they in Siachin Glacier? So when a Pakistani general speaks to me, a retired Pakistani general speaks to me somewhere, and he claims that he had operated in Siachin, then I tell him, but I commanded my battalion in Siachin. Tell me, where were you? Where did you command your unit, or where did you function? Yeah, they cannot even see the Siachin Glacier because the whole Saltoro Ridge is there in the middle. So they are way down below. But for their ego, they have to tell the world that we are in Siachin. Right? This is a fact which was also hardly known to the government of India. So I think it's around 2004, 2005, when this issue came up, when Pakistan started proposing to India that we must have a mutual withdrawal from Siachin because there's an unnecessary expense, nothing grows there, there are no people there, there is no strategic importance. Why should the two armies lose lives there through climatic conditions? So the government of India actually started looking at it seriously and saying, yes, we can withdraw from the Siachin Glacier. They asked the army's opinion. And the army very clearly said one thing. They said, if there's a mutual withdrawal, we are aware that only one army will withdraw. And that is the Indian Army. Because the other army is not even in Siachin. This the government of India perhaps did not realize at that time. So this wishy-washy proposal of the Pakistan Army and the Pakistani nation that we should have a mutual withdrawal was shelved way back in 2004, 2005, right? And till now, this thing continues from time to time where they keep talking about mutual withdrawal from Siachin, not understanding that people like us are there who have served there, who know the strategic importance of that place, and that India cannot afford to give up Siachin. We spend 4 crore rupees a day, 1,500 crore rupees a year in Siachin. But for a nation with the economy that India has, and inshallah, our economy will be much bigger in the years to come, 1,500 crore rupees a year is chicken feed. Absolutely. Yeah.
I must give credit to the disinformation campaign so successfully run by the Pakistani army. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing this with us. So, in your view, why are Turkey and Malaysia allying closely with Pakistan despite the obvious disadvantages internationally, and should India worry about this alliance?
This is a very interesting question actually. You must remember that within the Islamic Ummah, there are different countries who vie for the leadership of. There is a Saudi Arabia, by virtue of its having the major shrines, Makkah and Medina, and also because of the fact that it is the virtual energy crucible of the world today, kind of hydrocarbons that is holding. So the importance of Saudi Arabia and its economy and things like that, it has been a virtual natural leader of the Islamic part of the Islamic world, the Sunni world. The Shia world is led more by Iran. Turkey is a nation which at one time the Ottoman Empire, historically the Ottoman Empire was Turkey's empire. And so the Khilafat, what was called the Caliphate, was essentially Turkey based. So it was Turkey which was the leader of the Islamic world in the earlier period. Malaysia in Southeast Asia has got, it's a multi-ethnic nation. It's got Indians, it's got Chinese, it's got Malays, but Islam is the dominant faith there. Alongside that is Indonesia, which is the biggest Islamic nation, 220 million Muslims in that. So there is a virtual competition between Malaysia and Indonesia as to who really is the leading nation, Islamic nation in Southeast Asia, and by virtue of that, the leading nation in the Islamic world. So this is all about competition within the Islamic world. Pakistan somehow has perceived that with its army, 650,000 strong army, nuclear weapons, but an extremely weak economy, But with the kind of power that it enjoys because of its nuclear weapons and because of its geostrategic location, it is located in such a place right next to the northwestern portion of the Indian Ocean. The routes from China, New Silk Route, all leading into this area of Gwadar and all these ports this side, a link to Afghanistan, a link to Central Asia, controlling the routes from India leading into Central Asia. Pakistan is a very important nation geostrategically. It perceives itself as the leader of the Islamic Ummah, or it's got aspirations of being the flagship of the should we call the flag bearer of Islam. What has happened in terms of support is that traditionally Turkey has always supported Pakistan, where they don't want to be seen to be hurting the interests of the Islamic Ummah. Similarly, Malaysia, with President Mahathir, who's actually an old timer, somehow they see their interests aligned with Pakistan as a part of the larger Islamic. And it's because of that that you find that this strange equation, Turkey, Pakistan, Malaysia, has emerged. How should India respond to this? I would say, don't respond immediately. There are no permanent friends and there are no permanent enemies in this strategic world. There are interests which Turkey has got with India, there are interests which India has got with Turkey. There are interests that India has with Malaysia, there are interests that Malaysia has. Right? India has a strong, large economy. Turkey, the economy is on the downturn at the moment. Malaysia has got tremendous interest in terms of investment in India today. So the political environment, political strategic environment is something different. Economically, it is something different. People to people, it is something different, right? We are jumping up immediately and looking at only the political side. And we're saying that Malaysia and Turkey have sided with Pakistan and therefore we should do everything against it. I say, hold your horses. Things are going to change maybe in 6 months' time. Who knew that the UAE, Saudi Arabia and Bahrain is going to support India completely? Did we know this is going to happen like this? So my advice to all these people who jump to solutions and conclusions and actions on the basis of the spur of one action by a nation, my advice to them is, dheeraj rakho. Do have a little patience in the strategic world. You don't jump to conclusions like this.
Wait and watch. So your wisdom is an asset to our nation. So there is one question I ask every army officer on my show. What does a soldier want from the nation?
What the soldier wants from a nation is a very important and a very interesting question. And a soldier classifies everyone, officer, soldier, everyone.
Yes.
He's all a warrior. What does a warrior really need from? What does he want? I think what a warrior needs from the nation is an assurance that he will continue, the nation will continue to respect his profession and give him the total backing that if there is a problem back home, because after all, this Jawan has left behind his whole family and is serving somewhere far away. Imagine a man from Kerala who's serving in Tripura, who's serving in Manipur. Right? He's left behind everything. He expects society to support his family. And in today's world, particularly with social media, one of the very difficult things on the social environment that we are facing in the army is that every soldier is connected to his family through the mobile telephone from way off places. And the problems of his home are imported to him in a matter of minutes, seconds and minutes. In earlier years, it used to take 10 to 15 days for a letter to reach. By the time the problem would have resolved itself. Today, every problem of the family and the home is brought to the doorstep of the soldier where he is serving. It affects him mentally. It demotivates him. And therefore, we must try and ensure that we provide everything to the soldier in such a way that his family is looked after, his children are looked after, and should he lose his life in battle tomorrow, his family must be completely looked after. All his dependents must be completely looked after. That's the most sacred agreement between the nation and the soldier.
So thank you so much for giving me and all your followers so much time and honoring our love for you. I hope we get more such opportunities to learn from a legend like you. And to all of you listening, I'm sure you enjoyed it as much as I did. Please let Sir know how much it meant to you that he gave us so much time to answer our queries. Also, please subscribe so that you don't miss my future videos. Jai Hind.